Hi, I'm Ron Mallory, and this is one of a series of videos I've been making giving background into some of my original musical compositions. Today I want to talk about a piece for handbells called Hope and a Future. I wrote this piece back in 2015, and it was somewhat inspired by a Disney movie that came out that same year called Tomorrowland. I actually wrote most of this piece before the movie was released. I was looking online at some of the promotional materials for the movie, which included excerpts from Michael Giacchino's score for the film. Michael Giacchino is one of my favorite film score composers, and as I was listening I realized there was a certain chord progression he was using over and over in this film score. And the music theory part of my brain started going into analysis mode, and I realized it was a 1 chord going to a flat 6 chord. If you're using a C major scale, a 1 chord is a C major chord. The 6th scale degree is C, D, E, F, G, A. If you flat the A, make it an A flat, and base a major chord on that, you have an A flat major chord. So a C major chord going to an A flat major chord. You could also look at that as a third relationship, because a C going down to an A flat is an interval of a major third. And I immediately realized this was a really appropriate chord progression for the score for this particular film, since one of the themes of the film is retrofuturism, that exploration of what people from the past thought that the future would be like. And that chord progression gets used in a lot of film scores for old classic science fiction movies. One of the classic examples would be Jerry Goldsmith's amazing score for the Star Trek The Motion Picture, which came out in 1979. Those third relationships, not just the C to the A flat chord, but at the end a C chord to an E chord going up a major third. And that's a sound that's really strongly associated with science fiction. As a matter of fact, the theme for the old Star Trek TV series back in the 1960s uses that same chord progression. There it is again. So I decided, I want to try writing a piece of music that uses that same chord progression. So I played around for a while and came up with what became the main theme for this piece, Hope and a Future. Since the A section of the piece used major chords, for the B section of the piece, which starts at measure 39, I decided to focus on minor chords. It's very common in chord progressions for the bass note to descend by an interval of a fifth. Something like... but in this section, I decided to do something different. I would have the bass notes ascending by an interval of a fifth. What's sometimes called a retrogression, but I love that different sound. It kind of gives a sense of being propelled upward, as though you're being propelled into the future, so to speak. The movie Tomorrowland also gave me inspiration for the slow introduction to this piece. In the backstory of the movie and the fictionalized history of the movie, they talk about in the late 19th century, Gustav Eiffel, Jules Verne, Thomas Edison, and Nikola Tesla getting together and having a series of conversations about the future of humanity. And they would discuss and debate and sometimes disagree. And I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting idea. So at the beginning of this piece, I took 4 notes representing those 4 voices. They're in dissonance with each other. I'm using the whole tone scale. And then once in a while, they would agree on something. Resolves to a C major chord, and then they get into their discussion and debate again, and then again they come to a consensus. That same idea comes back later in the piece over at measure 60. You hear those 4 notes in a little bit of a different form, just suggesting the idea that conversations about the future of humanity are of course something that continues even to this day. Once the piece was done, I needed a title. I wanted a title that kind of tied into that idea of futurism, but also recognizing that handbell music is usually heavily marketed to church ensembles. So I used a quote from a famous Bible verse, Jeremiah 29:11, where God tells the people of Israel, "I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you hope and a future." So check out the movie Tomorrowland. As I recall, it did not do very well at the box office, but I think it's worth checking out, if nothing else, just for Michael Giacchino's amazing score for the film. If you have other questions about my piece, Hope and a Future, you can get in touch with me through my website, ronmallorymusic.com. Thanks, have fun, and God bless.